This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
There are about 1,000 of us.
I was 16.
I was 16.
I started going to him when I was like 14 turning 15.
This man that she worked for, she called him her client, and he likes to receive massages, and he'll pay you several $100s for 30 minutes.
The women all have familiar stories of grooming, promises, and then sexual assault.
The training started immediately. I mean, it was everything down to how to give a blowjob, how to be quiet, be subservient, give Jeffrey what he wants.
Victims that were alleged sex slaves of Jeffrey Epstein.
Did the justice system fail these victims?
This is the worst failure of the criminal justice system in modern times.
Before I begin this video, I want to make a disclaimer that I am not suicidal. I do not suffer from any terminal illnesses. I am doing very well in terms of both my physical and mental health. I am very happy and satisfied with my life. I have a job that I love. I have hobbies. I have friends. I am not going away or driving somewhere far anytime soon. So if something happens to me after this video gets out, you know what really happened. Palm Beach, Florida is one of the wealthiest cities to live in America, if not the world. The median house price in Palm Beach is $5.5 million, so if you can afford to live here, it's safe to assume that you have made it. You either won the lottery or most likely you grew up into wealth. This is where the millionaires, the billionaires hang out, where they have their vacations homes, where they spend their summers, where they have their second, third, fourth, or maybe even fifth property that remain empty for the rest of the year. But there is also a side of Palm Beach that is overlooked. A side that is ridden with poverty, project homes, people with troubled backgrounds who are looking for a better chance in life. When you have two vastly different worlds living in the same place with such a divide, one of abject poverty and the other of extreme wealth, it becomes obvious who belongs to who. In Palm Beach, Florida, you've either made it or are looking for a chance to make it. One of the people that did famously made it was none other than Jeffrey Edward Epstein. Born on January 28, 1953, Epstein was a financier and investor who resided in his private island of Little St. James in the Virgin Islands, but he also owned vacation homes in New Mexico, Palm Beach, New York, and Paris. But it's in his $22 million mansion in Palm Beach where he spent most of his time, hanging out with billionaires, playing golf, and throwing sex parties. Things were already suspicious as to what would go down in these parties, especially in 2004, where a criminal investigation was first opened in Epstein's Palm Beach mansion. But it wasn't until 2019 things really boiled over. On July 6, 2019, federal agents arrested Epstein on the count of sex trafficking of minors, but as he was awaiting trial, Epstein was found dead in the detention center that he was being held in Manhattan on August 10th. His death was ruled as suicide, but given the context and prior events leading up to his death, it felt more like a cover-up. There was a suspicion and unsettling feeling that his death was more of an inside job to keep him quiet rather than suicide. This wasn't the first time Epstein was arrested for sex crimes. On June 30, 2008, Epstein pled guilty to state charges of solicitation of prostitution and soliciting minors for prostitutions, but he received what was believed to be the most lenient sentence for the level of the crimes that he committed. Epstein was able to recruit his own team of defense attorneys. These were powerful, well-known attorneys in the industry who managed to lower his sentence to just 18 months. Even then, Epstein only served 13 months, during which he had his own private vacant space in the Palm Beach County. He was allowed to visit his private office in Palm Beach, where he spent upwards of 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, accepting visitations from people, even women. But as more and more survivors came forward and opened up about what happened to them under the hands of Epstein and his accomplices, the truth of the extent of his crimes became harder to ignore. For the record, they knew exactly what they were doing, they knew what they did was wrong, and that it was a crime, yet they did it anyway. Epstein's partner and longtime associate Ghislaine Maxwell played a key role in recruiting victims for Epstein. Ghislaine would approach girls as young as 13 from vulnerable backgrounds. These girls came from poor backgrounds, ran away from homes, had suffered abuse in the past.
I went from an abusive situation to being a runaway to living in foster homes to just already being hardened by life on the streets.
The other girls that I personally know of that were coming from trailer parks, that were having gun shootings, drugs.
My mother was on drugs at the time, and she couldn't provide for me, and I was pretty much homeless.
Ghislaine would make promises to these girls of a better future, whether it be money, a modeling contract, opportunity to become an actress, a massage therapist. She would tell them how, oh, I know so-and-so people from this industry and they can help you get a job. You just have to come with me and do this one thing. That one thing was giving massages to Epstein. That's how it always started. These girls would be taken to Epstein's mansion, then into a private room where they would have lotion, massage oils, they would set up the massage table. It really did seem like they were just there to give a massage. It seemed legit. But then Epstein would walk in, oftentimes with nothing but a towel wrapped around his waist, and lay on his stomach on the massage table. The girls would start off by massaging his back, with Ghislaine showing them how to do it. Then eventually Epstein would turn over, take off his towel, and ask the girls to undress and have sex with him.
When he flipped over, that's when he said, okay, you can go ahead and take off your shirt and pants, but you can stay in your underwear.
He would want us to stand next to him, and he would masturbate while he stared at us, touched us.
To pull his nipples and to play with them in between his fingers, and also while I was playing with his nipples, he kept doing that stuff to me. But he was very aggressive, like when he would do it.
And then he tried to put his finger in my underwear, and I jumped back, and I pulled back, and I was like, whoa. And he's like, no, it's okay, I'm sorry, I won't do that. And then he went back to doing that. He's like, just on the outside, and I'm like, oh my God.
It ended with sexual abuse and intercourse, and then a pat on the back. You've done a really good job. Thank you very much, and here's $200.
After they were done, Epstein would give them money, like $200, which is a lot for a 13, 14-year-old who has been living on the streets. And these were powerful people. These are the kinds of people you couldn't stand up to, you couldn't say no to, especially if you were a child who came from such poor backgrounds. There was this huge power imbalance.
You could walk into Jeffrey's house and you'd see pictures of him shaking hands with the Pope in the pictures, or pictures of him with just world leaders that you recognize even as a kid because they're all over TV, and so you instantly know that they're powerful people even without even telling them, having to tell you.
So these girls were groomed. They were coerced, they were abused. Oftentimes, after they were done, Ghislaine and Epstein would scare them into keeping quiet, threaten to hurt them, their family, if they ever told anyone about what happened. So these girls remained quiet and kept going back, recruiting even more girls themselves. The level of abuse would escalate. It would start in private rooms giving massages, then they would be taken to sex parties where they would be passed around between politicians, academics, royalties, even the now President of the United States. From there, they would be dragged onto Epstein's private jet, nicknamed the Lolita Express.
It's called Lolita Express for a reason. That was a vessel for him to be able to abuse girls and get away with it without anybody being alarmed or any alarm bells going off.
Epstein's appetite for underage girls was insatiable. He would always demand new girls, new faces every time.
I've seen hundreds and hundreds of girls go through Jeffrey's swinging door, his ever-revolving door.
Every time there would be new girls, some were poor immigrant girls who couldn't even speak English, they had no idea what was happening. Even if these girls were new, they never met each other before, they all basically had the same story of being abused, having troubles at home, experiencing poverty. Epstein was such a sick and depraved man. He constantly needed to have girls around him to fulfill his needs. He would drag them around everywhere with him. Even during a 2-hour flight, he could not sit still without doing it.
The abuse did not stop because we're in the air.
Did it stop when he had a special guest on board?
No, it did not stop then either. I mean, there were times that the plane would just fly and it would be normal, but 95% of the time, there was always sex involved. Jeffrey couldn't take a 2-hour flight without having to ejaculate. Like, that's how sick this man was.
And lastly, it would be the Epstein Island located in the Caribbean, a private island owned by him where laws did not apply, where he could get away with doing whatever he wanted without any consequences, but it eventually did caught up to him. The main issue with the whole Epstein situation is how far the rabbit hole goes. Obviously, him abusing minors, underage girls was the main thing. On top of that, there are allegations of cannibalism, satanic rituals, Epstein being a spy for Israel, and so much more. And the amount of people that were involved in this, like after doing the research for this video, I am convinced that every high-profile person were on it. Not just Hollywood, not just America, all over the world. And if they weren't an active participant in it, they were complicit, which is just as bad. In this video, I want to focus more on the abuse, the sexual abuse of minors perpetuated by Epstein and his associates, which I hope we can all agree was wrong. In fact, this is one of the few things that unites people from all sides of the political spectrum, from hardcore leftists to the most extreme MAGA supporters like members of QAnon. Almost everyone agrees that what Epstein did to these children was wrong, and everybody involved needs to be named and shamed. There is so much evidence for everything that I mentioned and so much more, to the point I got overwhelmed. I'm talking hundreds of girls, minors, and these are only the ones who came forward. There is probably plenty more. There was an FBI investigation done that found enough evidence to fill up 53 pages of indictment of sex crimes. With this much evidence, this much records, this many victims, it leaves you wondering, how did this happen? How did the people involved not only got away with it, but succeeded in life, holding some of the most important positions in society? In this video, I want to narrow the evidence down to 3 women who were allegedly abused and tell their stories. Because like I said, there are so many, and when you have that many people coming forward with their stories, it can be overwhelming. It's easier to just block it out and get numb to it. But when it's individuals, when their story is presented as them being a single individual person, it's much easier to comprehend and see them as a person instead of just a number.
It was literally like being in jail. You didn't look like you're being in jail. This is how screwed up it is. So you couldn't just be miserable around them, right? You are miserable. You're screaming on the inside. You're suffering so bad, to the point where, they end up putting me on Xanax. Sorry, I was trying to think of the name of it, to help combat my depression. But you're screaming on the inside, but on the outside, you have to sit there, you have to be polite, you have to smile, you have to nod, you have to do exactly what they tell you, and make sure you look happy while you're doing it.
Virginia Roberts Jeffrey, or Jenna for short, had a hard life. She was born in rural California, where she spent most of her childhood climbing trees, riding horses, and spending time with her 2 brothers. She had a fun, happy childhood up until the age of 7, when she was molested by her father, something that her family brushed under the carpet. Realizing that there would be no consequences, the abuse escalated as her father passed her on to one of his friends to abuse her as well. Jenna went from being a sweet, bubbly, happy child to being a rebellious teen with anger issues. She often lashed out at her parents, got into trouble at school, turned to drugs and alcohol. When her family could no longer handle her, they sent her off to live with her aunt. After Jenna ran away from her aunt's place, she was put in a home for troubled teens where she endured bullying, strict discipline, and punishment. After running away from there too, Jenna ran into a man named Eppinger, who was old enough to be her grandfather but ran a sex trafficking ring with girls as young as her. Eppinger then further abused and passed Jenna on to pedophiles like she was a piece of toy, not a human being. Eventually, when the police caught on to Eppinger and found Jenna, realizing that she was a minor, her parents were called. Her parents worked to get her life back on track, as her father got her a job as a locker room attendant, hoping for a fresh start at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago. Jenna wrote about all of this in her memoir, Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice. She explained how having endured all this trauma and abuse at such an early age made her vulnerable and turned her into the perfect victim for Epstein and Maxwell. Jenna was only 16 years old when she started working at Mar-a-Lago as a locker room attendant, where she worked close to the spa and massage section of the resort. Jenna was mesmerized by the massage therapist at Mar-a-Lago, how calm and collected these women seemed as they massaged people, how they had such a soothing aura about them, how they nurtured, comforted, and healed people. Jenna looked up to them and wanted to be just like them. For the first time in her life, she knew what she wanted to do with her life. So Jenna borrowed a book about human anatomy from the library and began reading, and it was then she was approached by Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell carried on an image of being a very demure, sophisticated woman on the outside. She spoke with a very posh British accent. She was someone who you would never imagine to be as depraved as she was, so Jenna let her guard down around her. Maxwell was marveled by Jenna's interest in massage, being like, wow, you're interested in massage? How wonderful. I actually know someone who is looking for a traveling masseuse. Jenna was reluctant at first, being like, oh, I'm not trained at all, I don't know how the body works. But Maxwell reassured her by saying that's not a problem at all, just come to this place at this time for an interview and we'll teach you. We'll teach you everything, all you need is a desire to learn. So that day after work, Jenna's father drove her to 358 El Brillo Way, which was to Epstein's mansion in Palm Beach. Maxwell took her into a room where Epstein was laying prone on a massage table, completely naked. Right then and there, Jenna started to feel odd, like something wasn't right, but as Maxwell began showing her how to massage Epstein, that uneasy feeling went away. Because at the start it really did seem legit. Maxwell was showing her how to massage the body, how to maintain a steady rhythm and flow. She was giving out helpful tips like always keep a hand on the body so you don't startle him, keep the lotion near you. Anytime Jenna showed reluctance, Maxwell pressured her. Like when Jenna tried to avoid massaging Epstein's buttocks, Maxwell took Jenna's hands and placed them onto Epstein's butt, being like, it's important that you don't avoid any body parts, otherwise the blood won't flow right. As they were showing Jenna how to massage, they started talking. They started off by making harmless small talk, asking her questions about herself. Do you have any siblings? Where did you go to school? How did you start working at Mar-a-Lago? Jenna obediently answered all of their questions, but then Epstein started inquiring about really inappropriate and intrusive things about her, like, are you on birth control? Are you a virgin? When was your first time? Let me remind you, this was supposed to be a job interview, so there was already a power imbalance. Add on the fact that Epstein and Maxwell were these powerful, rich, posh people, and Jenna was just this little teenager with no experience. She couldn't really say no. So she took a deep breath and began telling them about what she had been through, vaguely, saying how she was abused by her father and then his friend. After that she ran away, hoping Epstein and Maxwell would understand how desperate she was and how badly she needed this job to turn her life around. Instead, this gave Epstein the green light to do what he did next. After that, Epstein turned over on the massage table, revealing that he had a full erection. He then looked at Jenna and Maxwell and ordered them to take off their clothes and have sex with him. Many people wonder, why did Jenna go back to Epstein and Maxwell after this incident? Why didn't she run away, tell her parents, go to the police? Well, like I said before, Jenna had already endured a shocking amount of sexual abuse and even sex trafficking thus far in her life, to the point it felt normal to her. To her, it was something she just had to do to get things in life. She couldn't turn to her parents because her parents themselves were abusive. Her father himself molested, sexually abused, and even let his friend abuse her when she was only 7 years old. So she was vulnerable, and that's exactly why Epstein and Maxwell targeted her. Epstein and Maxwell had a knack for finding girls like Jenna who were already broken, already vulnerable, who they knew couldn't stand up for themselves. Just like Jenna, most of Epstein's victims had already suffered some serious trauma in the past, whether it be sexual abuse, violence, being homeless. Even though what they did to these girls were abhorrent, at least he was giving them something in exchange. After their first interaction, Epstein handed $200 to Jenna and asked her to come back for more experience that she would need to get a massage certification. And that's exactly how he would trap them, through making promises to them, whether it be with money, a better future, a career where they can do what they love, like modeling, acting, or even massage therapy. It would incentivize them to come back for more. As Jenna explained in her memoir, we were girls who no one cared about, and Epstein pretended to care. At times, he even believed he cared. A master manipulator who excelled at defining the desires of others. He threw what looked like a lifeline to girls who had nothing, girls who wished to be and do better. If they wanted to be dancers, he offered dance lessons. If they aspired to be actors, he said he would help them get roles. If they said the only thing they yearned to do was paint, he bought them canvases and introduced them to key people in the art world. And then he did his worst to them. The other reason why Jenna kept going back was simply blackmailing. Epstein and Maxwell were some of the most powerful people in the world. They had connections to important people from all walks of life, and they used this power to threaten, manipulate, and psychologically abuse their victims. For Jenna, she had a younger brother who she was very fond of. Her brother was the person that she loved the most in the world. One day, Epstein called her into his office, took her to his desk, and handed her a grainy photograph. It was a picture of her brother as he was walking to school. "We know where your brother goes to school," Epstein said. "You must never tell a soul what goes on in this house. And I own the Palm Beach Police Department," he said, "so they won't do anything about it." So Jenna went back. She kept going back to Epstein and Maxwell to give them massages. She was expected to be on call day and night, show up whenever Epstein needed to get off. At one point, Epstein even bought her her own apartment closer to his house so she wouldn't need to travel as much. So at this point, she was only 17 and she had her own apartment. Her friends and family were initially suspicious, especially Jenna kept it vague about what she actually did. But once they saw how much money she was making, they stopped questioning her. But even though Jenna made all this money, more money than most people her age could even dream of, on top of that she had all these nice things, her own apartment, she was able to travel the world and meet famous people, she was dying on the inside. After every session with Epstein, she would get drugged to numb herself. She would do anything from Xanax to alcohol to weed to even cocaine to regulate herself, to cope with what she was going through. I mean, they made her do every sexual act that you can think of. Penetrative sex, handjobs, blowjobs, threesomes. She was made to have sex with women, even as Epstein would watch. At one point, Epstein got really into sadomasochism, BDSM, and that sorts of things. He would gag her, tie her up, chain her hands and feet together as he would beat, whip, and even choke her, which would often cause her to black out. Jenna was asked to recruit other girls her age or even younger for Epstein in exchange for money or to stay out of trouble. But the thing that Epstein was best known for was trafficking. He would lend out these girls to friends, other famous and powerful people in the world, like they were toys to be played with. One of the people that Jenna in particular became known for being trafficked to was Prince Andrew. The former Duke of York, son of Queen Elizabeth II and younger brother of King Charles III, a member of the royal family. Jenna met up with Prince Andrew on 13th of March 2001 when she was 17 years old. And for the record, Prince Andrew knew that Jenna was 17. Most of the people that Epstein trafficked to knew that the girls were underage, and it wasn't something that they were ashamed of, that they were trying to hide. No, they were proud of it. They, especially Maxwell, would often joke about it. When Prince Andrew arrived at the townhouse that evening, Maxwell was more coquettish than usual. "Guess Jenna's age," she urged the prince after she introduced me. The Duke of York, who was then 41, guessed correctly, 17. "My daughters are just a little younger than you," he told me, explaining his accuracy. As usual, Maxwell was quick with a joke. "I guess we will have to trade her in soon." Oh my god. But perhaps the most traumatic thing that Jenna endured was something that happened during July of 2001. For the past 3 weeks till then, she had irregular bleeding, pain, and tenderness in her abdomen. One morning, she woke up in a pool of blood and sharp pain in her abdomen. She pressed the intercom, screaming that she needed help, and was rushed to the hospital.
Why were you admitted to hospital?
For excessive bleeding. I wasn't too sure what happened. I woke up in Jeffrey's room in New York, not in his room, sorry, in his house, in my 4th floor room, and the sheets and the bed covers were all white, and I woke up with a pool of blood. I mean, a splash of blood, like you could splash it, and I was in so much pain. I managed to like roll off the bed and onto the floor and hit the phone. The maids came up. They freaked out. They called Guylaine. Guylaine told Jeffrey, "We have to take her to the hospital right now." And they took me to the hospital, and so much of it is a blur. I don't really remember what happened there. I just remember fogginess. I remember pain. I remember some doctors. I just don't remember everything. And it was a really scary time for me. And after that, then they sent me back to Florida for a few days to rest and recuperate.
Before it started again?
Before it started again.
What do you think was the cause of the bleeding?
I thought it was a miscarriage, but I'm not too sure.
So she was raped and abused so much that she got pregnant at the age of 17 and suffered a miscarriage. But she wasn't even given time to grieve, to process what has happened. As Jenna said in her memoir, "After my hospital visit, I had to come to terms with the fact that I had gotten pregnant and lost a fetus without even knowing it was happening. That made me feel even more numb. But there would be no time for grieving. In Maxwell and Epstein's world, the party never stopped." Perhaps this incident foreshadowed the worst that was yet to come for Jenna when Maxwell asked her to bear a child for them. So by this point, Jenna had turned 18. She was getting too old for Epstein, according to Maxwell. So Maxwell said to Jenna that if she wanted to stay with them, to be supported and funded by them, she needed to have a baby. She had to carry and birth the baby, but she wasn't going to be a mother, just a handmaid. All the legal rights to the child would be signed off to Epstein and Maxwell. She wasn't allowed to make any decisions, have any power, any rights over the child. If for any reason her and Epstein fall out, the child must stay with Epstein. She wasn't allowed to take the child with her. Maxwell offered her a hefty price, like, "Oh, you could have a mansion in Palm Beach or New York. We'll give you an allowance of $200,000 a month. You'll have on-the-clock nannies helping you." But by that point, Jenna had finally checked out. Because as bad as it was for her, there was no way she was going to bring a child into this environment. I mean, what if she ends up having a daughter? Would her daughter be abused like her as well? If she did, there was nothing Jenna could do about it according to the agreements that Maxwell laid out for her. She could not stand that. This became her last straw. It's kind of sad that the future and well-being of this hypothetical child who hasn't even been conceived is what crossed the line for her, not all the abuse that she endured thus far. But for the first time in 2 years, Jenna began to plan her escape. So Jenna said to Maxwell, being all friendly, like, oh yeah, of course I'll have your baby, but I need to get what I initially came here for, which is a massage certification. Remember that? So Epstein and Maxwell enrolled her in one of the top massage schools in Thailand that they paid the tuition for. They got her a nice apartment in Thailand, gave her allowance. At 19 years old, Jenna traveled to Thailand all by herself, promising that she would return straight after she gets her certification. Instead, she ended up meeting an Australian-Italian man named Robbie Jeffrey there, whom she married. She then ended up moving to Australia with him and had 3 children. She was ready to put everything behind and have a fresh start, but after the birth of her daughter, she decided that she could no longer remain silent.
It takes so long to get to a point where you're able just to speak about it. I mean, it took me having a daughter and looking at this beautiful, young, innocent baby to say, I want to speak out about it now.
The years following that, Jenna became one of the most outspoken survivors of Epstein's crimes. She traveled all over the world telling her story. She reached out to various news outlets, from Miami Herald in America to 60 Minutes in Australia. She wrote her memoir where she told the world what happened. She founded her own organization for survivors of sexual abuse and sex trafficking. In her interviews and her books, Jenna would not sugarcoat anything. She would tell it how it was. She would name names. While she was commended by many for being courageous, it was no secret that she had a huge target on her back. On 25th of April 2025, just at the age of 41, Jenna passed away due to mysterious reasons. The cause of her death was said to be suicide, even though she showed no signs of it. In her memoir especially, even though it was harrowing to read, it ended on a positive note. It ended with her looking forward to life, raising her 3 children and fighting for a cause that she believed in. She always made a point to let people know that she was not suicidal, and if something ever happened to her, it was not from her doing. Also, this narrative of her committing suicide wasn't even consistent. So on 30th of March 2025, about a month before Jenna was pronounced dead from suicide, a very graphic image of her was posted on her Instagram. I'm not going to show the image here, but the caption under it read, "This year has been the worst start to a new year, but I won't bore anyone with the details, but I think it's important to note that when a school bus driver comes at you driving 110 kilometers as we were slowing down for a turn, that no matter what your car is made of, it might as well be a tin can. I have gone into kidney renal failure. They have given me 4 days to live, transferring me to a specialist hospital in urology. I am ready to go, just not until I see my babies one last time. But you know what they say about wishes? Shit in one hand and wish in the other, and I guarantee it's still going to be shit at the end of the day. Thank you all for being the wonderful people of the world and being a great part of my life. God bless you all, XX Virginia." So, did she die of suicide or a car accident? Also, if her condition was so bad to the point she had only 4 days to live, how was she still able to log on to her Instagram, posted a photo of herself and typed all that out? Many people in the comments pointed out how weird this post was, how this does not sound like her at all. People weren't saying it out loud, but everyone knew what really happened. Especially as of making this video, the House of Democrats released around 20,000 email exchanges between Epstein and other key figures, in which Jenna was mentioned a couple of times. In one of the emails sent by Epstein read, "Blank worked at Mar-a-Lago. She was the one that accused Prince Andrew. Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course he knew about the girls as he asked Killane to stop." Knowing the context now, it's pretty obvious that Epstein was talking about Jenna here. Reading Jenna's memoir and learning about her really made me realize how awful this whole situation is. I mean, before I started working on this video, I knew this was going to be bad, but nothing could have prepared me as to how dark this was going to get. People like Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell shouldn't even belong in the same species as human beings. That's how evil and twisted they were. And what's even worse is that there are people that are somehow even worse than them. Like in one of the emails, Epstein went on to say, "Recall I've told you, I have met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump, not one decent cell in his body." When I first read this, I was shocked. I mean, obviously Trump is no saint, but for Epstein, for Jeffrey Epstein, the notorious child molester and sex trafficker, for him to think that you are a bad person? What could have Trump possibly done to get this? But then as I learned and read about the next victim of Jeffrey Epstein, I got my answer.
No, there was nothing promised to me for doing this interview.
Excellent.
Yes, everything that I say at this interview will be the truth.
On 30th of September 2016, an affidavit was filed under the pseudonym Jane Doe accusing Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein of rape and sexual abuse at the age of 13. That woman later came forward and revealed her real name to be Katie Johnson in an interview conducted on 2nd of November 2016. This was around the time Trump was running for his first term of presidency, which is the reason Katie came forward. All these years she remained silent. She tried to move on, forget what happened, but after she found out that Trump, her rapist, is running for president, she felt compelled to speak out.
The reason I'm coming out now is when it happened originally, I just wanted to forget about the whole incident. And when I saw that he was running for president, I felt it was my responsibility to come out and tell our country what kind of man this person is. I don't think that he should even be the dog catcher, let alone running the greatest country in the world. The fact that Trump has a chance to be the next president makes me feel disgusting inside. I've always been proud to be an American. I think we live in a beautiful country, but I just see him ruining everything. He's a horrible, what he portrays on the outside isn't even that great, but people don't even know the half of how evil, how sick and twisted that man is.
Similar to Jenna, Katie was lured into Epstein's circle with a promise of money and a modeling career, for which she moved to New York. There she met another girl named Tiffany, who said she knows a guy that has connections with important people in the industry who can get you what you wanted. All you have to do was give him massages. You already know where this is going at this point. Except Katie was only 13 years old at the time, and Epstein knew that she was 13. She wasn't the only one. Many of these girls that were recruited were all around 13, 14 years old.
Out of all the girls that were there with me, most of them were 13, 14. I think the oldest one might have been 16, but just turned 16. And she'd been there for a while.
So it started off with massages, then Katie was asked to come to these sex parties where Epstein would hold orgies with other people. There she was preyed upon by none other than Donald Trump. According to Katie, Trump was very clean, which even I was surprised to learn about. Apparently he was a bit of a germaphobe, so when Epstein would hold these orgies, Trump would not join them. He would just stand to the side and watch. Katie was made to give Trump a hand job and a blow job, during both of which she was made to wear gloves and put a condom on. But after Trump learned that Katie was only 13 and she was a virgin, he took a liking to her because she was pure and clean and she reminded him of his daughter.
Donald Trump had specifically asked about me because I remind him of his daughter, and she said, well, she's 13 as well. So he knew the first time that he saw me, but he took a liking to me because I look like his daughter.
Things came to a head one day when Trump wanted to play out this rape fantasy that he had with Katie, except it wasn't a fantasy for her. So they had her tied to the bed wearing pantyhose. Then Trump walked in and basically jumped onto her, ripping all her clothes off like he was like this savage animal. The girl Katie was with, Tiffany, tried to stop him, being like, she's only 13, you're scaring her. Then Trump told her to shut up. And then he proceeded to rape Katie, all while she was screaming and crying and begging for him to stop. After he was done, Trump showed no remorse. He wasn't sorry. He did not feel bad. If anything, he was proud. He looked at Katie and said how she should be grateful that she lost her virginity to Donald Trump.
He comes over mad because I was crying, and he said that I should be thankful that someone like Donald Trump took my virginity. He basically didn't say took my virginity. He said, I should be glad that someone like Donald Trump popped my cherry and not some pimply little 14-year-old.
In the affidavit, Katie stated how she ended up being attacked by Epstein after this happened. So at the end of these sex parties, they were supposed to go up to Epstein and tell him what they did. When Katie told Epstein that Trump took her virginity, Epstein punched her on the face because he wanted to be the one to take Katie's virginity, not Trump. So here we have two grown-ass men fighting over a 13-year-old girl, a literal child. Like Jenna, Katie was threatened to keep quiet, except with Katie, the threat was much more direct. She was told that if she ever told anyone about what Trump or Epstein did, her and her family would be seriously physically harmed, if not killed. But thankfully after that, Katie left and never went back. She did not tell a soul about what happened until now. For me, what was the most sickening about all this is how Trump became interested in Katie because she reminded him of his daughter Ivanka Trump. And it's not like in a cute, affectionate way, but in a really creepy, incestuous way.
The one night that I had the blonde wig on, he mentioned that I looked like, that I reminded him of his daughter. And actually the maid fantasy, I didn't have a blonde wig on. I was trying to stay away from blonde wigs at the time. But he actually told Tiffany that that's what he wanted me to wear. Like, he wanted it, and anytime I put it on, anytime I had it on and he'd see me, he would say, oh man, you look, and it wasn't like oh, you remind me of my daughter. It was this sick, evil, like, you remind me of my daughter. It was just this weird pleasure, sick smile. Like, I don't even want to know what he was thinking about. I could imagine what he was thinking about.
I mean, it's one thing for Trump to go around assault random women and girls. Obviously, it's terrible, but to have these kinds of thoughts towards his own daughter is next level of depravity. It makes me wonder, what has Ivanka endured? For her to be Trump's daughter, growing up with him, living with him, what has she seen?
This was my bed. It's a little small for me now. Probably why I don't stay in here anymore, but yeah.
And what floor are we on?
We are on the 68th floor. Not a bad view to wake up to.
Trump has always had a very weird attraction towards his daughter, Ivanka Trump, and it's not in the sort of sweet, wholesome way where he's just proud of his daughter. No. From the way he touches her, the way he poses with her in photos, the way he speaks about her, like, he's not even subtle about it. He has made it abundantly clear that he is sexually attracted to his daughter. I mean, he literally said that if Ivanka weren't his daughter, he would be dating her.
I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know.
Ivanka, what's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
He also lets other men talk about Ivanka in the most disgusting, objectifying way right in front of him, and he doesn't even stop them. If anything, he encourages them.
By the way, your daughter, she's beautiful. Can I say this? A piece of ass. Yeah. She looks more voluptuous than ever.
She's actually always been very voluptuous. She's tall, she's almost 6 feet tall.
And he is like this out in public, in front of cameras, live on TV, so I can't even imagine what he would be like behind closed doors. I have always wondered if Ivanka experienced some sort of abuse under his hands. There is a video of Ivanka where she gives a tour of her childhood bedroom in her house in New York City. I will play the start of it, and I want you to pay attention to how her demeanor changes when she gets to showing her bed. She starts the video off in an upbeat voice, smiling, laughing, making jokes. The moment she gets to showing her bed, her energy shifts. She stops smiling, her voice drops.
This is a room that nobody's probably walked into for the past 10 plus years. It's a little time capsule, if you notice by the Madonna clock and my interesting attempt at color painting, the homage to Poison and Motley Crue, the 90210 posters, little, I think they were trading cards that were stickers, and the Bon Jovi sort of wall. This was my bed. It's a little small for me now. Probably why I don't stay in here anymore, but yeah.
And what floor are we on?
We are on the 68th floor. Not a bad view to wake up to.
Now, I am a survivor of child abuse and child sexual abuse. The way Ivanka acted in this clip really hit me. She looked like she was dissociating. She acted exactly like how I would act when I get triggered. As of making this video, there is no allegations or evidence of Trump assaulting or abusing his daughter, but the way he behaves towards her, it would not surprise me at all if something were to come out. I did, however, found an email in the database sent by Epstein where he claimed that Trump groped a woman named Hart who was at Trump's estate with her partner George for a business meeting. He pushed me up against the wall and had his hands all over me and tried to get up my dress again, Hart said. And I had to physically say, "What are you doing? Stop it." It was a shocking thing to have him do this because he knew I was with George. He knew they were in the next room, and how could he be doing this when I'm here for business? And this happened in Ivanka's bedroom. So what happened to these women were absolutely disgusting and inexcusable. There is no reason, no excuse, no context under which this will ever be okay. And there is so much more. There are so many women who have come forward. So how did they respond to this? What did Trump and Epstein have to say to all the women they assaulted? What was their response?
Would you raise your hand, please? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
The crimes that Epstein, Trump, and everybody else who were involved committed were absolutely horrendous. There is no excuse, no defense, nothing that can be said to minimize the effects of these acts, so they just conveniently don't. For the longest time, Epstein and Trump have denied their involvement with the sex trafficking of underage girls. Epstein especially would always avoid giving a direct answer when asked about this. He would refer to his Fifth Amendment right, which is the right to remain silent.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Yes.
What was the crime of which you were convicted?
Two counts, one soliciting prostitution and procuring a minor for prostitution.
Did you in fact commit those acts?
I'm going to invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
How many times have you solicited a minor for prostitution?
Same answer.
How many times have you solicited a minor for prostitution in the state of Florida?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited a minor for prostitution in the Virgin Islands?
Same answer.
That is, you are invoking your Fifth Amendment?
Yes,
right?
Yes, Mr. Scroll.
Have you ever solicited for prostitution in New York?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited for prostitution in New Mexico?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited for prostitution in Paris?
Same answer.
Have you ever solicited a minor for prostitution anywhere at any time?
Again, I'm going to assert my right.
Trump has straight up denied that he ever even visited Epstein's island.
I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
Even though there is mountains of evidence against it, there is videos, photos, articles written, but he still denies having any involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. This wouldn't have been as big of a problem if it wasn't for the fact that Trump has consistently promised to release the files if he were to be re-elected. In February of 2025, Attorney General Pam Bondi literally said that she had the Epstein client list just sitting on her desk waiting to be reviewed.
And one of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
They were riling people up like, oh yeah, we have the client list, we have the names of all the people involved, we just need a little bit more time for them to be reviewed. But then as time went on, they got what they wanted, Trump got re-elected, their stance began to shift. Now that they actually have to do what they promised all along, they started to get very wishy-washy. They kept pushing the deadline. Until in July of 2025, the Department of Justice released a 2-page memo saying that there were no files. There is no client list. Trump even went on to say that it is all a hoax and people should just move on. Yeah, and I guess when Epstein committed suicide in 2019 as he was awaiting trial for his crimes, he did so because he just felt really bad for no reason. All the cameras that stopped working during then, the guards that failed to check on him every half an hour, him having no cellmate, his autopsy that pointed to homicide were all a giant coincidence. The excuses that people made were laughably bad. Kash Patel, the director of FBI, went to the Joe Rogan's podcast in June of last year, and when brought up Epstein, he spent over half an hour convincing people that they are telling the truth and Epstein really did kill himself. If there were any evidence, videos of Epstein on the island, we would know, and how we just need to trust him, which in turn made him look even more suspicious.
If there was a video of some guy or gal committing felonies on an island and I'm in charge, don't you think you'd see it?
No. Like, you know, it's bad when even the FBI is now doing PR shows. When they started to run out of excuses, they defended Epstein. They admitted that, yeah, while what Epstein did was bad, it wasn't pedophilia, he wasn't attracted to children, it was ephebophilia, as an attraction to teenage girls that are barely legal, as if that makes it any better.
That Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls. And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts. That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby.
When people went buying it, they finally did release the files. Yes, the same files that they once claimed did not exist, that were a hoax, were released. As of making this video, the Department of Justice released some of the files, except they're redacted. I'm talking hundreds of pages, full pages covered with black blocks from redaction.
The much-anticipated release of the Epstein files is drawing bipartisan backlash, not because of what's been made public, but because of what's being redacted and withheld.
Some of the documents we're seeing released are just 100 pages of redaction. And obviously, I don't want the names of survivors released, but like 100 pages of redaction, that's a lot.
The DOJ releasing a mass dump of heavily redacted documents tonight. And I want to just emphasize that point. By heavily redacted, I mean a lot of pages that look like this, and this, and this, and this.
This is an absolute joke. Like, yeah, obviously redact the names of the victims, but to have entire pages redacted is such an insult to all the people who suffered under the hands of Epstein. They have also released some photos, all of which were redacted as well. There was also a footage released of Epstein's house on the island. They are literally releasing everything except the names of the people who were involved. Like, we asked for names, they gave us a house tour. After everything was removed, of course. Nobody asked for this. At this point, you're better off just admitting that you don't want to release them, either because you don't want to incriminate yourself or you don't think what he did was really that bad. And some of them did do that.
Let's say you're right. I'll grant that you're right, and he's on the list and all the things, and you're right about all the accusations you've been making. Why is it wrong that he did those things?
Are you asking me why it's wrong to rape children?
Yeah, I need you to tell me why it is wrong in your eyes
to rape children.
To do that. Yes. Do you need me to repeat it? Can you not hear me? Do you have too many cocks in your ears, or what's up? Why is it wrong? Is that too hard of a question?
But with that, we have to address the elephant in the room. Because I can sit here and go on and on about how terrible Epstein, Trump, and the whole administration is, but the truth is, they did not act alone. Epstein couldn't have done what he did alone. Trump, despite everything that he has done, is still the president of the United States. People, the American public, voted for him, knowing what he has done, not just once, but twice. This is indicative of the bigger problem that permeates this society. On March 21, 2018, in an email exchange between Jeffrey and his brother Mark Epstein, Mark said, "Ask him if Putin has photos of Trump blowing Bubba." Bubba here refers to Bill Clinton. So Bill Clinton is originally from Arkansas. There and in the South in general, Bubba is used as like an endearing term to say a man or a bloke. So according to Mark Epstein, Trump allegedly gave a blowjob to Bill Clinton whilst Putin watched and took photos. When this first came out, it absolutely broke the internet. There were memes, edits, videos that racked up millions of views within weeks, and for good reason. This stuff is absurd. This is the kind of thing that you can't make up even in your wildest dreams. But why did this get more attention than the actual victims of Epstein? The victims who were below the age of consent, who are scarred for life, who can never have a chance to live a normal life because of him. As outlandish as this whole Trump blowing Bubba situation is, if it actually even happened, I honestly couldn't care less because both Trump and Bill Clinton were adults at the time and assumably consented to it. Epstein's victims did not, yet they are still being overshadowed, overlooked, and brushed under the carpet. The reason being is because we live in a patriarchal society that fosters an environment where girls and women can be abused. Under patriarchy, women's suffering is normalized and desensitized. Abuse, especially sexual abuse and rape towards women, is dismissed because we live in a hierarchical society that puts men above women. So rich, powerful, elite men preying upon vulnerable teenage girls doesn't threaten the hierarchy. But Trump getting down on his knees and sucking another man, allegedly, does. That's why the allegation of him having an affair with Bill Clinton, thus coming out as closeted homosexual or even bisexual, had a much more devastating impact to his reputation than countless allegations of sexual assault made against him by women. What people need to understand is that Epstein and Trump are not outliers. They did not act alone. Rather, what they did was an extreme version of ideas and beliefs that are already prevalent in our society. And while things have somewhat progressed with the age of consent laws and policies of anti-discrimination, it is still built upon shaky grounds. Women's rights are something that can just be taken away, rolled back. To this day, child marriage is still a thing in many states. Scriptures and laws about the protection of young women and girls can often be vague, abstract, inconsistent, with a lot of leeways and loopholes. This gives ammunition to predators like Epstein, who believed that he had a biological need for sex, that he had a right to the bodies of young girls and women for sex. As Jenna said in her memoir, The fact that different nations and states define the age of consent differently, in Florida it's 18, in New York it's 17, in England it's 16, only gave Epstein ammunition. He said these inconsistencies proved these laws were arbitrary and meaningless. No one could convince him that sex with minors was wrong because no one could agree on what a minor was. This reflects a systemic problem that is deliberate. The system is intentionally set up for young girls and women to be abused and for predators like Epstein to succeed. As for Trump, well, Trump is an interesting case. Because as evil and depraved as Epstein may be, at least he was subtle and quiet about his depravity. For the longest time, he had gone to lengths to hide what he was doing, from threatening his victims, bribing them with money, buying his own private island where he can get away with his crimes. Trump, on the other hand, is outspoken about his depraved nature. He is known for openly barging into women's changing rooms, saying on live TV how he would like to date his own daughter, proudly bragging about grabbing women by their pussy.
Grab him by the pussy?
And that is exactly what is appealing to his voter base. This is what they like about him. This is what made them vote for him for a second term. Because most people that support Trump have nothing in common with him. There is nothing about Trump that should be relatable to them.
My medication, it runs $20,000 a month without insurance. I make $800 a month. Oh, that will kill me. That would kill my friends. That would kill millions of people in this country if they lose their health care.
Now, if you're making less than $1,000 a month, to the point you can't even afford your health insurance, why the hell would you vote for a billionaire? Literally, what do you have in common with a billionaire who bankrupted multiple casinos? What do you see in him? Fran Lebowitz from Vanity Fair might have an answer. Because you see, while Trump is a billionaire, he is a very special kind of billionaire. If you have ever been around rich people, around people who have actual generational wealth, you would know that they are very subtle about their wealth. They don't typically outwardly display and brag about their wealth like Trump, whose mansion is made of gold, with gold elevators and faucet and even golden toilets. This level of showing off is usually frowned upon in wealthy circles. This screams tacky, insecure, classless. But this is what makes Trump relatable to ordinary people. Ordinary people who don't have much, who are barely making ends meet, think this is how rich people live. This is how they behave. This is what they have. Everything made of gold, gold house, gold elevators, gold faucets, gold toilets. So Trump is not just a rich man, he's the poor person's idea of a rich man. As said by Lebowitz in this Vanity Fair article that was published shortly after Trump was elected for his first term. That is Trump's appeal. That is what people see in him. This is how they think people who have the kind of money Trump has behave, and most importantly, this is how they would behave if they had the kind of money Trump has. While Lebowitz was referring to Trump's wealth here when she said this, I think it applies to Trump's treatment of women as well. Most American men, hell, I would even go as far as to say most men, when they hear about powerful men like Trump and Epstein abusing hundreds of young women and girls and getting away with it, they don't feel disgusted or shocked or upset or anything like that. No, they admire it. They envy it. They aspire to be this powerful where they can too one day get away with hurting so many people and suffer no consequences, where they get to treat women like objects that they can use, pass around and discard once they are done with them, where they get to have complete control over women to the point they have no choice but to submit to them, where they too get to brag about groping women in public without any real pushback. And this is the bigger problem that permeates our society, where abuses are not shunned but are put on a pedestal for others to look up to. This is what allowed Epstein and predators like him to get away with what he was doing for so long. This is what got Trump the popular vote, causing him to be the president of the United States for a second term. I think at this point, expecting everyone to be involved with Epstein and Maxwell to face the consequences of their actions would be too much to ask for. Firstly, there is a lot of them. Secondly, these are incredibly powerful people who are basically above the law. I mean, the FBI and the Department of Justice is literally going out of their way to protect them. So the least that they can do, the least that we can ask for, is the acknowledgement of what happened. For the victims to be acknowledged, for them to at least admit what happened and reveal the names of the people who did it. And this is not just me saying it, even victims like Jenna wished for a bare acknowledgement before her death.
What do you think should happen to the men who you were trafficked to?
I would feel so much better, first of all, just for acknowledgement. Acknowledge what you've done to me and acknowledge what you've done to so many other girls. Secondly, an apology. Take acknowledgement for it and be disgusted in yourself, because you should be. And thirdly, they should go to jail. They have no right walking out on the streets, okay, and being fine with who they are. They should be held accountable. They should be named, and they should be shamed. What they've done is horrific. They deserve to be locked up.
But the reason they wouldn't even give us that is because they know how powerful naming and shaming can be. You guys remember Brock Turner? In 2015, a man named Brock Turner was arrested for raping an unconscious woman behind the dumpster. This case was so clear-cut, it was so obvious what he did was wrong. There was no he said, she said. She was unconscious. There was no way she could have consented to this. There were eyewitnesses that saw what Brock was doing, yet he was let go scot-free. He was arrested and released on the same day because he was just a promising young man. While Brock escaped the law, his reputation was forever tarnished. He was publicly shunned and shamed to the point he pretty much disappeared. It wasn't until in June of 2025 this viral TikTok was posted by someone who allegedly knew a friend of his, and according to this friend, Brock was shamed and shunned so badly that to this day he avoids being in public places. Even almost a decade later, Brock is still reaping the consequences of his actions. This is the reason why they don't want the names out, because they know how powerful naming and shaming can be. They may have the money, the power, the influence to escape the law, but they would never escape the judgment of the people. And so we as people need to take back our power. I know most people may look at the case of Epstein, this cult that he ran, at the thousands of files and feel overwhelmed as to how could one even begin to look into this. But you don't have to. You don't have to do everything, but you have to do your part. As of making this video, this is a trending topic, so more information might be released by the time this video gets out. But what I do know is that they are trying their best to make you forget about it, through redacting, deleting information, distracting you with other things. Don't let this go. If I could ask for one thing from this video, is to keep pushing for the files, the real files with the names and no redaction. After all, this is the least that the victims can get. Hold their feet to the fire and demand the files through commenting, liking, sharing, protesting, whatever you need to do. Let them know that no matter what happens, those files ain't gonna go away.
In a sleazy kind of way. You don't want us to have a look on a presidential day. It ain't gonna go away. It ain't gonna go away. Those Epstein files gonna bite your butt, and it ain't gonna go away. You can fire more people, you can try to distract, but it ain't gonna work this time. There's lots of pages you'd like to redact while you're slipping with the slide. It ain't gonna go away. It ain't gonna go away. Those Epstein files gonna bite your butt, and it ain't gonna go away. wake up. You can go to war today. You can point your finger at everyone else, but it ain't gonna go away. Yeah. It ain't gonna go away. It ain't gonna go away. Those Epstein files gonna bite your butt, and it ain't gonna go away. We won't stop singing till we see those names in a book we want to read. The victims all deserve that till we root out each bad